What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again with the Awesemo DFS channel, talking Week 9 USFL DFS. That's right, Week 9 in a 10-week season. We are almost there, but we do have a 2-week playoff, and we have some massive contests ahead of this week's slate. So let's dive into this. We're going to talk stacks, and then we're going to talk the running back position, give you everything you need to know. Before we get started, let me tell you about our premier sponsor, Prize Picks. If you've never heard of Prize Picks, they are daily prop-based contests. You can do up to 5-player lineups where you can net up to 10x your entry fee. They have sports of all wide varieties. You can use your knowledge in those multiple sports to cross entries, do everything like that. And better yet, if you use the promo code Awesemo, you're going to get a match deposit bonus up to $100. So make sure to check out Prize Picks. Click the link in the video description or just head to prizepicks.com to take advantage of that promo code Awesemo. All right, so we have stacks to start this off. We like to talk quarterbacks in conjunction with wide receivers because we are usually stacking them. It's an interesting week being Week 9. We've had 3 teams already clinch the playoffs, so there are some teams that are already eliminated. The Michigan Panthers, they might have a quarterback controversy on their hands. Houston, their starting quarterback is hurt. Pittsburgh, they haven't used a consistent quarterback all year. And then Tampa Bay is probably the only underdog who is in a competitive game that's going to be using a starter. So let's kick this off with Case Kukis. He's the monster that we saw last week, rush over 100 yards on 4 carries, the super long touchdown. Also pass for 4 touchdowns. And he's still only 9,800. So just talking pure value at the quarterback position, it's really hard to get away from Kukis, especially because this Philadelphia team is an 8.5-point favorite over Pittsburgh, one of the worst defenses in the USFL. And we know that Philadelphia is going to try to throw, at least on the year, they have the highest throw rate. But of late, they've been throwing the ball about 48% of the time and riding the run as they do approach the playoffs. They clinched last week. But still, you can't really get away from this price. And he's really easy to stack. If you look at the expensive receivers, you have Jordan Sewell, you have Devin Gray. Sewell's 8,500. He leads the team in targets, and he'd be the preferred player if you're going safe. But they also have options a little bit cheaper that could be used in GPPs. Maurice Alexander, he's been working as the wide receiver 3 as DeAndre Overton's been injured. Maurice Alexander is 3,600. You have tight end Bug Howard. He's generally very affordable, which he is on the slate as well. And if you want to go risky, Overton did return last week, but limited snaps. If you think he gets back to the wide receiver 3 and the largest of GPPs, he could be viable. Another quarterback who has gotten a little bit safer this year is Jamar Smith. We usually worry about Alex McGough coming in and stealing primarily the rushing work, but Alex McGough has already been ruled out. And we have Birmingham as a 12.5-point favorite over the Houston Gamblers. That gives them the highest implied team total on the slate. You do worry about a little bit of competitiveness here, but overall, Jamar Smith is going to be playing every single snap, presumably, unless it gets to absolute blowout territory. The one thing with Smith, now that he has all the snaps, he is a player that has directly benefited already when we've seen Alex McGough out. In games where Alex McGough has missed, Jamar Smith averages 7.5 carries per game. In games where they've both played, Jamar Smith hasn't increased over 3 carries. He hasn't seen more than 3 carries in any game. So having McGough gone is huge for the rushing upside of Smith. Typically, again, they're massive favorites, so I'm not sure we maybe see it here. But overall, that is important. And plus, he does get back his number 1 receiver, Victor Bolden, who's expensive in his own right, 10.8K. So that's a very expensive stack. But you can also go down, use a guy like Marlon Williams at 6,100. Even tight end, Sage Surratt should be very cheap because Kari Angeline is on the inactive list. Otherwise, I think Jordan Tiamu and Kyle Sloter, they're interesting options for stacks facing each other. That's a 3-point game in favor of New Orleans. The winner basically gets into the playoffs. New Orleans probably going to get it done here, but that should be competitive. Tiamu hasn't really maximized his rushing upside lately, even though he has been rushing a lot. He's expensive at 10.6K, but I would have interest in Tiamu stacks with Cheyenne O'Grady if we get some tight end news that Hampton is out. O'Grady's 4,400, so that's a little interesting there. And last one I want to mention is Kenji Bahar from Houston. They don't have Clayton Thorson right now, and Kenji Bahar is 6,500. The running backs, which we'll talk about in a second, actually got a price hike. So lineup construction is a little bit more difficult this week than it really has been all year. If you need to punt quarterback, a 6,500 Kenji Bahar is in play. He rushed 6 times last week. This team is going to throw the ball a decent amount. They don't use a tight end. They're basically 4 wide on the field at all times. And he's getting back number 1 receiver, Isaiah Zuber, who missed last week due to an absence. Zuber 10.4K. You can easily stack those guys. Teo Redding is a player who's stood up a lot recently. He's 5K. I think that's completely fine for tournaments. Getting to that running back position, it's expensive, much more expensive than previous weeks. Matt Colburn, he's up at 9K now. He is that awesome receiving role for Philadelphia. And last week we saw them do something really interesting. They don't have Darnell Holland right now. He's injured. And even Paul Terry, who was active, only played on 2% of snaps. So they used Chris Rowland as the situational scat back. But really, that just allowed Matt Colburn to dominate work here. And again, we have this Philadelphia Stars who's embraced the run a little more recently, playing Pittsburgh as an 8.5-point favorite. Love this matchup for Matt Colburn to 9K. Probably not expensive enough. Darius Victor for the New Jersey Generals. He's another interesting name to mention. New Jersey is a 7.5-point favorite over the Michigan Panthers, so game script works in his favor. He's already playing on the run-heaviest team in the USFL, and they have a couple injuries to monitor. First of all, they haven't played Deandre Johnson, their dual-threat quarterback, in any of the last 2 games. One game he was rolled out. The other game he was probable and never saw the field. So they just may be sparing him until the playoffs. They already clinched their berth. But either way, we had Trey Williams go down with an injury as well. Trey Williams wasn't listed on the injury report, but they interestingly brought up Kingston Davis, who was their third-string back, hasn't been active for a game this year. So I'm waiting to see what happens with this backfield. But if we get news that either Davis has moved back down or Trey Williams is out or even Deandre Johnson's not going to play, Darius Victor on the run-heaviest team, the player of the week last week for this team, 9,200, not enough. Last 2 I want to mention, Bo Scarbrough. If you just look at Birmingham, again, they're massive favorites, and this could be a spot where they ride the run against Houston. Again, 12.5-point favorites. So Scarbrough leads a committee consisting of Maribel and Tony Brooks-James, but Brooks-James barely plays. So I'm comfortable with Scarbrough at his price. And Cameron Scarlett, 4,300. We have Reggie Corbin already on the inactive list. Now, they could bring him back, so monitor this. But if Reggie Corbin misses this game, it's basically just Stevie Scott and Cameron Scarlett splitting work 50-50. And Cameron Scarlett has been their passing down back all year. So for a punt play at running back, 4,300 Cameron Scarlett makes a lot of sense, even though they're slight underdogs here. But that'll do it for USFL DFS Week 9. Hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel before we head out of here. My name is Matt Gajewski on Twitter at Matt_Gajewski. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time.